Recording's in progress. How to develop faith and conviction in karma, or faith of conviction. We never use the word blind faith or just because the Buddha said. In fact, the Buddha said, don't take anything I say on face value. Check it out for yourself. So here we're looking at karma in relation to future lives. What will be the ripening of karma of this life in future lives? So they say, if you want to know how your past lives, how you were in past lives, then look at this life. What happens in this life? What happens in this life? What you experience. And if you want to get an idea of what it'll be like in future lives, look at where your mind's at. That's the creator of all our actions. So like that. So here we're reflecting on karma and its general effects. With this topic of karma, there's always, well, there's these many of that and this many of that. So we're gradually going through all the this manys of this and that. And so here we have 4 general characteristics of karma we'll be discussing, reflecting on today. And the quote here from the Buddha, the opening verses of Dhammapada, I always figure if it's the opening verses, it must be the most important, because if you only read the opening verses, like I was looking at the news feed this morning and some things I was reading a bit more and I thought, oh no, I just want to scroll through and see the pictures now. I don't want to read anymore. And I think that's what, anyone a journalist, that you got to put your important stuff in the first sentence or paragraph or whatever, because people don't read any further. So I reckon the Buddha did the same. So here we have all experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. So everything we experience is due to our mind, how we experience things. And so speak or act with a corrupted mind. So this means the afflictions in our mind, anger, hatred, jealousy, pride, all of these toxic emotions that we say are poison for our mind. And we can literally feel when we're in those states, it is a poison, it's toxic, isn't it? It's just horrible. Suffering follows. Just in the analogy, as the wagon wheel follows the hoof of the ox. All experience is preceded by the mind, led by the mind, made by the mind. Speak or act with a peaceful mind, and happiness follows like a never departing shadow. And hopefully too, we can also, through our experience, have confidence in the validity of that as well. When we're kind and loving and, things seem to go much more smoothly for us and for others. As Lama Tsongkhapa said in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, after death, just saying, resonating this, after death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So here's a point of debate. After death, just like a shadow follows the body. We have to say just like the shadow follows the body in this life, because after death, you're leaving the body behind, but it's also said that in the sort of weeks before you die, or at least one indicator is if you see that you haven't got a shadow, panic. It means you're going to die. It's said that. Or if you stop hearing the ringing in your ears, I'd probably be, oh, wow, that's wonderful, because I've got tinnitus. If I stopped hearing that, I would just be blissed out. I was like, oh, no, that means you're going to die. I don't really want to check it out to see if it's true or not. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me, always to be careful to abandon even the slightest negative action and accomplish all virtuous deeds. So then in the presentation, it looks at what we're saying is a non-virtuous action. Basically, it's anything that does harm through our speech and through our action, physical actions. We can have an umbrella, but then we go through these 10, which we've looked at a little bit, we'll look at a little bit more, and then subsequent weeks look at more in relation to karma. So it's basically saying happiness and suffering that we experience in this life is a result of past karma, non-virtuous or virtuous. It's not just luck or good fortune, or, well, it's the same thing, isn't it? Not random, not just that's how it is. You know, when I was in my preordained life, doing some work in the Philippines, and they'd had landslides, they had earthquake, they had flooding, and it's like, what's God got against us? Because it's predominantly a Catholic country, right? And so it's not that there's some God raining down these things on us. I do believe, I mean, I grew up Catholic, and God was a loving God from my memory. I was reading something from Desmond Tutu this morning, one of my Hindu, I think she is, friends, and she posted Desmond Tutu saying, I can't actually believe that a God would allow, you know, condone racism or homophobia or anger and conflict, you know. I don't think so, you know. So anyway, so today we might say Turkey, Syria would say, well, maybe they say what's God got against us, but from the Buddha's presentation is that we create the world in which we live. And that's hard to understand, believe me. You don't have to believe me, you can believe yourself. It's really hard to get that. Okay, and we can look at that a little bit more. I think it's next week we'll be looking at things like the different types, different kinds of karma. So when we get to environmental karma, that will be hopefully a big debate. So the first one of these four general characteristics is the certainty of karma, that karma is certain in that a positive action, a positive kind word brings a positive result. Now, it doesn't mean immediately you'll get a positive result, because you'll say, but I was really kind to so-and-so and they were still a rat bag back to me, you know. So it's not about immediate result. It's that one of the effects of say, speaking truthfully is that in future lives, even if you're lying, and that's a bit of a qualm, people believe you. You have the power of speech. Of course, then after that, if you're lying, you suffer the consequences of that. So it's not like you get away with things. So this is part of certainty of karma. You don't get away with things. So wholesome actions, and the Buddha used the words wholesome. I quite like that because it's like healthy, bring happiness, and unwholesome actions bring suffering as a result. So I mentioned Lama Tsongkhapa earlier. Lama Tsongkhapa's our founder of the lineage we follow, same as the Dalai Lama follows the Gelugpa tradition. So up here on my right, your left, up the back with the big yellow hat, that's Lama Tsongkhapa. And this is one of his works. So talking about the certainty of karma, all happiness in the sense of feelings of ease. So simply, we think of happiness as like, you know, putting on a smiley face or whatever, or not putting it on, genuine happiness. But we have all these pleasant sensations arising, pleasant experiences arising. And that's all in this realm of what we'd say contentment or happiness. So all happiness in the sense of feelings of ease, whether of ordinary or noble beings. So when we talk about noble beings, we talk about bodhisattvas, including even the slightest pleasures, such as the rising of a cool breeze for a being born in a hell. Or I could say anybody who experienced summer last year. How many days are over 46? Oh my gosh. And it was my first summer here. People told me, oh, it gets hot and then it gets hotter. And I'm like, this is December. Who'd ever want to live here? Anyway, this summer's been much kinder. Arises from previously accumulated virtuous karma. So having that cool breeze, having the aircon, this is a result. Of course, there's immediate conditions, you know, it got installed, it's here, it's working, it gets checked up. But the original sort of karmic fruition is that, you know, we have accumulated virtuous karma in past lives. It is impossible for happiness to arise from non-virtuous karma. So getting angry, have you noticed, doesn't make you happy. It sort of has a toxic fallout. It has an immediate toxic fallout depending on who or what we get angry with. Yes. So you're practicing restraint. That's excellent practice. You're not putting it out there, but you'll still see you're rattled inside, right?
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I suppose I'm just curious.
Yeah, but you could think that even that people feel that vibe, and they do feel the vibe, they don't have the bleh that comes with it. That is, you know, when we were at school and they said sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me. I just thought, I think it's the opposite. I think it really hurts and it stays hurt. So, you know, so I think, you know, we're all works in progress, right? And then if we need to have an outlet for that energy, I remember years ago, I must have had a lot of anger at the time, and I'd go swimming and I wasn't swimming like this, I was swimming like this, pounding the water. The water doesn't mind. So we can find ways of doing that. We're retraining, yeah. The first thing is we're noticing that we're fuming. Usually it comes out before we even notice. I mean, if we're, you know, not here trying to learn how to put a cap on it, but, you know, the very first step is go, oh, I'm fuming. I notice that, you know. Even that starts to reduce the fume, you might notice. That little bit of distance, yeah, that little bit of distance. And it's like, phew, at least I didn't say what I was thinking, you know. Because honestly, I think if we recorded ourselves or somebody else recorded us and played it back, we'd be horrified in those moments. It was just like, oh, so embarrassing. Yeah. Yes.
And very slowly anger to pass, as opposed to noticing anger as fast.
Yeah. Yes, rather than identifying with it, I'm angry. It's very useful. I notice anger arising. And of course, we do that when we can reflect on, well, how do I know that? Because I've got these familiar thoughts, you know, revenge or whatever it is. I've got a palpitating heart. I'm feeling flushed. I'm clenching my jaw. I'm pounding the water with my fist, whatever it is. Oh, must be angry. Or no, sorry, anger must be arising, not must be angry, because we don't want to be anger. Definitely not. Okay, good, useful comments. Yeah, so on the contrary, all sufferings in the sense of painful feelings, including even the slightest suffering occurring in an arhat's mind stream. So an arhat is a being who has direct perceptual realization of emptiness. In other words, they have absolutely completely, reduced all the sort of gross coarse levels of these afflictions. So it would be the slightest suffering, because they couldn't have anything more than the slightest of suffering, arise from previously accumulated non-virtuous karma. So you could say it's accumulated, but it's only a teeny tiny bit of I mean, most of us would be great. I'll take the teeny tiny bit. For example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in relation to anger, when His Holiness was asked, aren't you angry at the situation in Tibet? And His Holiness said, I see anger arise in my mind. I see it pass away, 1 minute. So he doesn't say, I get angry, point taken. I see it, not even it's arising. I see it. Well, I see it arise in my mind. I see it fade away 1 minute. And he said, the reason I can do that is that I've meditated since I was 6 years old. So the Dalai Lama isn't going, anger? What do you mean by anger? Never heard of it. I don't know what it is. It's not in my experience. He's saying, yeah, I know what anger is. Just like the arhat, having that sort of, I would call that a subtle level of anger. I'd be very happy with 1 minute just watching it come and go. Is that a hand? No. Yes.
It's the same as what you're saying in the way, but it's also that other neutral. Whatever I think I am.
Yes, what I think I am. Yes, that's true. Yeah, we create our own universe. Whatever I think I am is what I am. Self-fulfilling prophecy, It's true. So we know that we can change that sense of self. We can update our thinking to be more in sync with reality. And we're never just one thing anyway. We're all very complex, which is good. And that the mind is fluid. It's changing moment by moment, but that gives us the opportunity to say, well, I don't want it to keep going down that familiar rut. I want it to, new neural pathways to happen. Thank you very much. I want to be different. I want to, access my natural virtue. And that's the beauty of karma, that it's not a fait accompli. It's not like you're doomed to something. And that can be the wrong understandings of karma. It's actually gives us the opportunity to say, oh, okay, so I'm actually the boss of my mind. I can actually take control. It's not easy, but we're training, we're learning. Okay. So an unwholesome action is one motivated by attachment, hatred, and delusion. So we call these the three poisons. In other words, the three main deluded, afflicted states of mind, toxic states of mind that, then branch out into all the other ones that come along. So the root one being the delusion or ignorance, confusion. We use those words, what do we say, interchangeably. But the attachment energy, the desire energy, is what propels us into existence, and then within our existence propels us, through the senses, that everything, we just go to everything pleasant. I mean, I think that's good. I think that's a healthy thing to do, at least, rather than the unpleasant. We avoid the unpleasant, but it means that we're always attached, or when it gets out of control, it's like the craving, the grasping, and then, that becomes our object of obsession, say, whatever it is that we want, And then when that doesn't get what it wants, then we have the anger, the frustration, the irritation. I didn't want to feel uncomfortable. And I think in the last century, we've done a very good job of making ourselves more and more comfortable. Now, you know, I haven't had, okay, in 2015, you know, my mother was still alive and I had to go and buy her, I had to go to the shop to buy a mattress, and I hadn't bought a mattress in years. And I'm like, I didn't realize it was so complicated buying a simple mattress, you know. I just want something functional. And it's got all these layers and this and that and this and that and toppers and this and that. I'm like, wow. Anyway, I bought her the mattress and she said, oh no, I like mine, you take it. Very comfortable mattress. So yeah, we're very good at making ourselves comfortable. So it's not to say make yourself be uncomfortable. We have enough uncomfortability as it is, but to not allow those things to trigger these anger, hatred, craving, deluded actions, and so forth on the basis of that. So on the basis of that, with the unchecked mind, we engage in non-virtuous actions. And there are many, many non-virtuous actions. We could be here all day listing them, but we generally present it as the Buddha did in these sort of groups of 10, of 3 of the body: killing, stealing, lying. You know, any one of those, when we unpack them, gets more and more subtle. So gosh, I was trying to remember the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill, full stop, right? Thou shalt not kill. However, we still had fish and chips on a Friday night. I didn't kill the fish, and nobody in the family did, but we still, yeah. So it's a bit of a qualm. So in the Buddhist context, do not kill means any living being to the tiniest insect. I was so delighted this morning. I saw a little baby cockroach in the water, and I thought, oh, there you go, drowned another cockroach. Teeny little one. But I lifted it up and then it started moving. I was so delighted. And you could do some mantras, put it outside. It wanted to stay on my finger, but I said, no, you've got to go on the plants. You've got to go outside. Don't stay here. Because then I probably would have been a regrettable death. Anyway, you know, take joy in that, because it's very hard to avoid killing at that level. You know, we're not necessarily mass murderers of humans. That also, when I was at Kopan Monastery, our main monastery in Nepal, where Lama Zopa Rinpoche has been since the beginning of COVID, and I was on a retreat there, and I had a bottle of apple juice. This little bottle of apple juice, you know, with screw lid. And I had it on the floor next to the bed, which was probably on the floor. And I came back into the room and picked up the apple juice. It was full of ants. How did they get in there? It was closed. Well, maybe not closed enough. Anyway, so I spent the rest of the night in the bathroom taking all the toilet roll that I could find and putting the ants out. And, you know, quite a few of them started moving again. I was very happy. And then I took them all outside and put them on the plants, along with mantras and so forth. And I thought, if someone, let's say non-Buddhist, were to look at this, they think, she's crazy. Like, what's she doing? But then I thought, well, wouldn't a surgeon, I knew you're in the medical profession, as a doctor, you'd do anything to save a being's life, wouldn't you? Or at least a human being's life. So I thought, I'm doing the same. Ant surgery, breath of life, which was the toilet paper. I ran out of toilet. No, that's enough. That's enough information. But, you know, it's when we start to step back and notice, You know, it's amazing what we can do. And why would you spend that much time on tiny ants? Because each one of those has a mind. Each one of them has Buddha nature. Each one of them's a potential Buddha, right? So, and also being in the Mahayana tradition that says, you know, that whole purpose of my life is to be of benefit to sentient beings, to others, as much as possible, at least not to harm them, at least not to harm, which is, you know, the killing, stealing, lying, and then the 4 of speech, although I think we could multiply that a few times. I mean, what did I say? Killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. They're the 3 of the body. Got it right. And then lying. That's always a tricky one. Divisive speech, turning people against each other, backbiting behind people's backs and so forth. Harsh speech, abusive. That's how a lot of major conflict starts or ends. And idle chitter-chatter, gossip. So they're the meaningless speech, in other words. So they're the 4 of the speech. And then in relation to the mind, it's the jealousy, not getting what you want, you know, or jealous of what someone else has, and ill will, the mind of revenge, and then having the root ignorance, the wrong views. So these are non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind, we say. And particularly what we can control is the body and the speech. So we focus on that, excuse me. And then work, as we were saying, we work on our minds. We're works in progress. So we work on that. We're not going to magically just anger dissolves into nothingness without those, you know, like the Dalai Lama, 80 years of meditation. And then a wholesome action is one motivated by non-attachment, non-hatred, and non-delusion, non-confusion, non-ignorance, same thing. So when we say non-attachment, it's not just the absence of attachment. It means we've worked at letting go of that desire. I was speaking to a young Buddhist woman on Friday who said, there's nothing that attracts me that I'm really not attracted to things. And she's quite content with that. And I thought, wow, way to go, girl. Wasn't me at your age. But just that sense of being content, but also the mind of that from that non-attachment, you can have a mind of generosity, which is the opposite way of acting. And from hatred, having a mind of, you know, the opposite way, non-hatred is actually cultivating loving kindness for others. And non-delusion is cultivating our wisdom mind, our wisdom about karma at the moment, you know, however much we can understand, and then realizing, oh, if that's going to have effect on my future lives, and I also already know what this life is like, actually a lot of it's good, but there's still a lot of suffering, there's still a lot of rubbish in my mind, that I don't want any more of that. So what can I do? So that's developing our wisdom mind. Okay. So then we engage in the 10 virtuous actions, which are the opposite. Instead of killing, saving lives. Instead of stealing, practicing generosity. Instead of sexual misconduct, which is advised to be sexual misconduct, is that when you're in a committed relationship, to cheat on your partner or knowingly cheat with somebody else who's in a committed relationship. Why? Because however many people involved, including any children and extended families, everyone's going to suffer as a result of that, no matter what we tell ourselves. Everyone's going to suffer. So then the opposite of that is being, you know, faithful in our relationships, our intimate relationships, and being respectful, just being respectful of people's bodies and being appropriate and respectful of people generally, full stop. Okay. And then, so then lying instead of that, being truthful as we can. So sometimes I worry about that. You know, when we say, oh, there were millions of people there, well, I didn't count every single one. Maybe there was only like 100,000, maybe only 100,000, but we just mean a lot. And I think generally in our society, we're not going to say, are you sure, every single one? Like, but I try to be as precise as I can and convey that. But, you know, I notice in the news, you know, they often contradict themselves with numbers anyway. It's just sort of, well, you know, they're not there counting everybody either. There's just sort of a general sense. So with the lying one, given that lying is intention to deceive, that nobody's deceived by that. We all get it. You mean a lot of people. Okay. You know, you're not trying to deceive. You're trying to give an accurate picture. But, you know, if we can train to be as precise in our language as we can, that makes us more and more truthful, and it develops our wisdom. So then instead of divisive speech turning people against each other, of course, being kind and being inclusive, bringing people together, not making racist or sexist or homophobic jokes or whatever. I don't know, people still do that sort of thing. They probably there are people who do, but you know, looking out for inclusion of everyone. And then, you know, harmony. We've got World Harmony Day coming up on the 21st of March. I think it's 21st, yeah. And so, you know, creating harmony, creating harmonious communities. I was in when I was in Bunbury last year, we went to a council gathering, creating to make Bunbury a city of compassion and be known for that, put it on the map and what they could do in that space, actually do, not just say the words. So watch this space in Bunbury. They already have signs around the place. You'll go for a walk along the beach and it's got all these signs about being kind, you know, practicing kindness. It's really lovely. So where are we up to? Oh, yes. And the, yeah. So harsh words, instead of harsh words, being gentle in our speech. Manjushri, who's the Buddha of wisdom, literally means gentle speech. So it's not being brutal, you know, being very soft, and doesn't mean you have to be soft so people can't hear, not like that. But, you know, being very caring in our speech, kind, saying kind words. When I was visiting prisons and I, you know, was trained by the full-time chaplain to make the announcements, and he'd say, gentlemen, this is what he said over the PA, gentlemen, this is to a bunch of prisoners, gentlemen, the Buddhist nun is here if you would like to come into the chapel and spend some time in meditation. He didn't go, Smith, get to the gate, you know, which he got ribbed by the officers for the way he spoke. You don't talk like that, you talk like this, you know. But to really, and that's profound in an environment like that. It's profound in our everyday life. And then the idle chitter-chatter, of course, we have to engage in pleasantries and so forth, and that's part of our welcoming, harmonious, kind speech. However, not just rabbiting on and people are getting bored and shuffling and so forth, and when you could be actually engaging in meaningful conversation and, you know, having the opportunity to do that. So we have to use our own wisdom when it's one or the other. I think the idle chitter-chatter is a great hook. I always think it's always got the danger in turning to one of the other negativities. They're not going into, then it's easy to get into backbiting or, you know, abuse or just nastiness, but to think, you know, to speak meaningfully so that people listen to what you have to say. Yeah. We don't have to be serious all the time. If you look at the Dalai Lama, he laughs with the whole body. It's a whole body laugh, great laugh. Lama Zopa saying he throws his body back and laughs. So I think our teachers teach us about humor as well. So how are we going so far? Any other questions coming up? So the next one, so that's the first point. The second point is that karma increases, it magnifies. So we talk about, okay, karma literally meaning action, but then the result of that is the residual like imprint on our mind, that it's a potential, like a seed, a potential that grows then on our mind stream the longer we leave it there, the longer we leave it there. So this is not with fueling anger with telling everybody about how angry you are and who caused you what. That also fuels our anger in the immediate situation. But we can think about these, you know, imprints on our mind stream that lay dormant there until the conditions arise. So as I said, what we're experiencing in this life is a result of that fruition of whatever karmic seeds, like the cool breeze or the aircon or whatever, from our own virtue from past lives, ripening in that experience in this life. So any single action magnifies and can have many, many, you know, sort of results, ripple effects, if you like. And we also say that internal causes, basically on the basis of our mind, are much greater than external causes. So this is where, you know, mind training is so important. The fact that we can train our mind, we can cultivate positive states of mind, which are in our nature. We can detox the negative, afflictive states of mind that keep us awake at night and give us a hard time. Any fun check give other people a hard time. So in other words, a small action that we do is not trivial, because through accumulating a lot of small actions, there can be a huge result. So for an example of a virtuous action creating a huge result, a huge virtuous result. When you read different texts, there's many, many examples historically given, but it's also good to draw on ones of our own life. So this is from the life of the Buddha. So there was a young boy, Jaya, who wanted to offer the Buddha a barley meal. So we call it, you know, and in the Tibetan tradition, it would be sampa, you know, barley mixed with butter, which we had that here for a few days as an offering for the new year. So he visualized he was offering the Buddha that, but in fact, he was offering a handful of dirt. I mean, that's what he had. And, you know, when monks and nuns do the alms round, you know, and then they put food in, well, he put the dirt in, but in his mind, he was thinking he was offering a meal. And the Buddha, and also he had a great aspiration to become a Dharma king, as we'll talk about Dharma king, so a leader. And the Buddha saw that pure state of mind, and that became the cause for him when the time was right, a few centuries later, to become King Ashoka in India. So King Ashoka in India, the 3rd century, 4th century, was a great Dharma king. So at the time of the Buddha, we hear these stories about all the, you know, even the Buddha's clan, Chokyi clan, and all these fighting amongst all the different clans. And so that was going on. And Ashoka was part of that, but then connecting with the Dharma, then his mission was to spread the Dharma, you know, throughout India and as far afield as possible. And so he did that. He appointed like officials who were going around India and teaching Dharma, you know, teaching the values of the Dharma. And so like we're discussing here, and just bring up his story. So he was, you know, the first Buddhist king in India, and he you know, embraced, just like, you know, many years later, Gandhi, the whole ahimsa, non-violent movement, and adopted Buddhist principles as part of the royal policies. So similarly, later in Tibet, Songtsen Gampo, we had the what's called the 16 Dharmas that became like the basis for the constitution of Tibet. So Ashoka did a similar thing. You know, he kept India united. He united through these values of, you know, looking after people's general welfare, justice, security, and ethics. And so he'd also, like, when you go to India, you can go in the Ashoka pillars all over the place that are inscribed with the Dharma. So he built these Dharma pillars that are still there today. And he also sent messages to Syria, to Egypt. So quite extensive traveling, Greece and Sri Lanka. So he's considered one of India's greatest leaders today. So that was all from that action of offering a handful of dirt with a pure mind. So it doesn't have to be big actions. All those small actions can bring huge results. So as it says in the text, do not think that the cultivation of even a tiny virtue will not pursue you. Just as a large pot is filled by falling drops of water, so too are the steadfast filled up by virtues accumulated a little at a time, a little at a time. Just think you're filling the pot. So then was a part of that is as well that even like eons might go by, that ripening of that karma because of that magnification. Here we're talking about positive results, but it can be on both sides as well. Okay. All right, so the third one, not experiencing the effects of actions that you did not do. So this is like my Filipino friend saying, it's not fair what's God got against us. Isn't, of course, in the Catholic tradition, I certainly never was taught about karma. It's not part of that tradition. So there are examples of, just think about this, not experiencing the effects of actions you did not do. I think I've spoken previously how I've found it quite remarkable when bushfires, you know, and every house in the street is burnt except for one. So from a karmic point of view, it would be explained that that person or people living in that house didn't sow the karmic seed to experience the result of having their house burnt down, right? So they didn't create the non-virtue for that, which could have been a teeny thing. Remember, it multiplies. Whereas for everyone else, they did have the karma to experience that. And then it starts to feel a bit judgmental, doesn't it? But it's not about that. It's that we've, as the Buddha said, we've all done everything in past lives. We've had eons of past lives, beginningless time, beginningless lives. We've done everything, good, bad, and in between. Everything, you know. So our experiences can ripen from that karma at any time, because it has to meet with the appropriate conditions. If it doesn't meet with those conditions, it just stays there until some future lifetime, magnifying away when it meets with the conditions, like something as intense as having your house burnt down in a bushfire. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone here about, well, the example that I remembered was a girl who had a brain tumor and was told that, you know, she only had a short period of time to live. And in the end, she outlived her parents and her brother. Her brother committed suicide, unfortunately, but she also died, her parents died before she did. So we look at this a bit more next time when we're looking at throwing karma, which is a karma that determines your lifespan, you know, how long you'll live. Of course, that can be cut short by accidents and so forth. That is true. It can be cut short. However, from a medical point of view, this girl shouldn't have survived so long. But it happens. Would you say, Ollie? It happens, right? I think that's why often the medical profession doesn't want to give you a prognosis, because they'll say, well, you know. So karma is also very specific. So the cause of karma, so we talk about cause and effect, cause and result, that's a natural law. It's very specific. So in case of the bushfire, it would be in relation to something similar in a past life. You know, maybe, I don't know, throwing a cigarette butt out of a window of your car. Nobody does that, do they? Hopefully nobody smokes too. But I'm not going to go there. What was that? We just what?
We just in the highway.
Oh, the nuclear capsule that we lost. Well, we could say that was WA's karma, wasn't it? Collectively, everyone, it was very intriguing, wasn't it? Yes, they had the capacity to find it, which you're just like, and it was right there, just right there. Well, thankfully, that was found safely and securely. Yeah, these things, yeah, that's true. And I also was hearing on the news that pollution is I don't know, not the greatest killer, but you know, there's going to be a lot of people with increasingly people with lung problems as a result of all this pollution. But we also have the capacity to stop that happening. Whether we've got the will, we've got the capacity. So, you know, karma, as I said, is very specific. And so we can understand that, you know, this specific action will have that specific result, like King Ashoka, having that in his mind stream, I want to become, and literally that thought then ripening over those concurrent, many lifetimes later. And also thinking that it's not trivial in that we don't want to think that we can just, oh, well, it was only a tiny lie. Yeah. So sometimes we think, oh, you know, it's what do we say? A white lie or a fib, a white lie or a fib or something. Because yes, once one takes refuge to break the one about lying from the root, the vow is saying that you're a Buddha, you're a realized being, come follow me. If anyone says that to you, don't go the other way. But given that we're not likely to say that, that's where we break it by the root, and it can't be restored in this lifetime. So, but we do, you know, sort of fudge the edges of truth a bit, or lying by omission, you know, it's good to investigate, not to whip ourselves, but just realize, oh, maybe that's why people don't listen to me. I must have lied, and people don't, you know, have confidence in the truth of what I'm saying. You know, I must have lied previous lifetimes. I'm not talking about this lifetime. Of course, telling big lies will land you in, no. Actually, this was a little lie. What was his name? Marcus Enfield, one of our High Court Justice, way back. You're probably, what was that? Federal Court Judge. Thank you. Thank you. Federal Court Judge. And he lied about driving the car. It was a fine. And he said he wasn't driving the car. And then he got into this whole web of lies. He ended up in prison. Not only that, being stripped of his I don't know, what do they strip him of? Certainly of being a judge. Yeah, being stripped of that. So this came from a little lie. And you could see, oh, what is it? The web, something web we weave when first we practice to deceive, something like that. Exactly, we saw that as rather an immediate result. And then the fourth one, actions you have done do not perish or waste away on their own and will bring results even after a long time has passed. So we've talked about the long time, but they stay on your mental continuum, even eons and eons, you know, that when it meets with the circumstances, and the right time arrives, we certainly feel the effects. So there was one Geshe who said that he had like a frog in his throat all the time. I didn't say that, I was just coughing a bit earlier. Well, that's probably true too. And he said that was from swallowing a mosquito in a previous life. So two things. One, obviously he could remember the previous life, which was quite remarkable. I mean, I'm not going to argue with a Geshe. It's just sort of knows their stuff. But also being able to see, oh, well, yeah, that was a result of my past karma. And the Tibetans, today, those who've left Tibet would say, they're not angry about the situation in Tibet. Yes, it's terrible, but they're not angry about it because they say, well, we created the karma for that. And the previous Dalai Lama had said to the Tibetans, the 13th Dalai Lama had said, you clean up your act in the monasteries because they were running maybe slightly unethical businesses and so forth. You clean it up. Otherwise, Tibet's going to experience the result. And if you think about doing that in a Dharma center, that's one of the heaviest negative karmas we could possibly do, heaviest object, we would say. And so they would say, oh, we're experiencing the result. It's not saying they sit down and be quiet, but, it's karma at work, So that what they're indicating that is if more we understand our karma, the more our minds can be a little bit freer and not so stressed out when bad things happen, right? And again, we have to say it's not a punishment thing. Maybe I have to say that because I grew up as a Catholic, because there was a lot of fire and brimstone and punishment going on. But still, it's just a natural law of cause and effect. A positive will bring a positive, a negative will bring a negative. Yes.
You just said punishment. So what's been going through my mind is punishment and reward.
Yeah.
Because I got into a conversation recently with somebody that was a Catholic, like an old born Catholic. So punishment and reward really imply a creator.
Yes, who's casting judgment? Yeah.
You talk about the results of virtuous actions and non-virtuous actions, and it can be kind of said, oh, if you do virtuous actions, then there's some sort of reward, but it's not really the right.
It's not really the right thing. We just have to check up for ourselves how I feel if I'm helping people and being loving, and like even with my teeny little baby cockroach, I was delighted. The mind was delighted, right? So saving a life, the mind was delighted. So we just have to observe what happens in our mind when we do engage in virtue, and we say, oh, just like the Buddha said, it's not like you must believe this and this is how it is. But it is hard from lifetime to lifetime to think that, because one, we don't remember past lives. And, when, people you know, when things happen to babies or, you know, abuse, domestic violence, these things happen, and say it's not fair. Absolutely, it's not fair. It's not fair. So it's we have to deal. I think we were talking before about not being doormats. We have to deal with situations as they arise. But some part of that realizing, okay, I'm repaying this karmic debt. You know, that it's not condoning the actual situation, and it's hard for us to separate those things out and have that sort of perspective. It's very hard to have a perspective about past and future lives, because I don't know about you, but I don't remember most of this life, most of this week, you know. Well, I remember quite a bit of this week, but I'm sure I've forgotten quite a lot as well. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I remember it was very
Yes.
girl passed away, and I was there, and this person who was sort of presenting as her response was and me, I found it to be accepted.
But also that sort of response is also not understand, maybe Buddhist, but not understanding karma, because if you're responding, first of all, as the Buddha said to, you know, Shariputra, only a Buddha understands karma. So you're sort of playing Buddha there. So we don't really know what someone's karma is. Any of us, any karmic right, we don't know, you know, actually. We make, as I said, you know, there is it is individual and it is specific, but we don't know those specific things. And it also sounds to my ears, and I'm sure all of us, as something very indifferent, uncaring, which is not what is being Buddhist, you know. It's absolutely not that. Of course, we're going to be, you know, caring about, you know, this poor person who's lost their life, whatever their karma was for that. We don't know if their life was cut short and they didn't, you know, experience the full result of their karma before it was cut short. That has to be experienced in another life, you know. Yeah. So you can see how, you know, declaring ourselves to be Buddhist, we have to be very careful about our speech, because that does impact on others, you know, and maybe not. Yeah, I guess she believed that for herself. So you'd say, you know, it's always the case when someone goes, oh, that's their karma. It's just like, you have no idea. You do not know a thing yet.
Getting to that, you know, distinctions.
Yeah. Yeah, and because no. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately you're persistent. Good. Yeah, always check up who we're getting this information from. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can, of course, we can speculate. I wonder what the karma for that is, but not necessarily Yeah, because I think we also get trapped with ourselves. Oh, what must I have done? And we, you know, get down on ourselves. Oh, I must have been such a bad whatever. I would say person, because we always think of ourselves as being a person, because here we are as people. Oh, I must have done some terrible things. Yes, you have. But look at where you are, in a Dharma center, in a conducive environment for being in a Dharma center with like-minded Dharma friends. So we've also created the karma for that. You know, so we're multiple. If we're creating in one finger snap 64 moments of karma are ripening and also being created, then a lot is happening at the same time. So yeah, we can't just say this is that. And you know, that's a great word of warning to be careful what we do say. Purification. Purification. I know. You really, no. It's like when I first read, you know, like Sangata Sutra and Long Life Sutra and all these sutras, and it says, you know, this will purify, like one prostration to this Buddha will purify this many eons of karma. And you go, great, I've got rid of quite a lot now. And then you go, have I? Like, how many eons are there? Seems to be endless, you know. And you just got to relax and just say, I will do as much as possible. So by engaging in just what you're doing now, listening, trying to understand about karma, it's an incredibly virtuous act. By reading sutras, by doing purification practices. So we're going to look at that in a couple of weeks. So that we can detox the mind, literally, we can detox the mind. Minding your own business is also a good thing, yeah.
I mean, sense of
Zip the lip and sit on the hands. You know,
sense of
yeah. But not indifference, like it is like, yeah, hey, look, that's it. That's what the Buddha said, do no harm. And where you can, benefit others. And work on your mind, subdue your mind. But we just, it is mind-boggling. But as you said, you know, but we've got eons of work behind us and maybe eons of work ahead of us. So just as the Dalai Lama says, never give up, you know. It's just that the tiny acts that we do, you know, profound effect. I mean, sometimes even in this lifetime, we experience that. Anyone a teacher? Any teachers here? Well, you know, from your doctoring, you know, when people improve, you know, and they come back and they're very grateful because you maybe saved their life or given them the right medication and so forth. So they had to take it though, you know, so but all those conditions coming together and we can see the results of those. So one of the things is to rejoice in all the positive things that we do, because it seems the way our minds are habituated towards non-virtue. I don't have to think, will I get angry today? It just sort of will pop out unannounced, you know, type of thing. But I have to work at, and it gets easier over time, you know, naturally having eyes out to look where to benefit others, or, you know, it's a practice over time of you know, sort of cultivating those positive states of mind. So there's two things. We cultivate the positive states of mind, loving kindness and so forth. We have the 4 immeasurables and, you know, different practices that we do, compassion, joy. We need a lot more joy. We need to rejoice in what we do. It's, as Lama Zopa says, it's the easiest way to accumulate more and more merit, is taking delight in what we do positive. It's like, what do they have before sports, you know, footy matches and that, they have their, you know, motivational talk and get them all geared up. That's what we have to do for ourselves. You know, come on, I can do this thing. Plus we have many practices for purification and detox the mind, you know. So like Vajrasattva practice, which we have here once a month, we can't see it at work literally, but the more we have, it's sort of like the more we have faith, like with the 4 opponent powers of really great regret for actions that we've done. And now we know a little bit more about karma, maybe that greater conviction for any harm that we've done. And I just say, like, whatever, focusing on something that's in my mind right now that, you know, was regrettable, take that as a starting point. And then I just say, whatever I've done that has not been purified from past lives, body, speech, and mind, whatever harm I've done, may it be purified right now. But then we're still accumulating more throughout the day, you know. So if you can see over a longer period of time, maybe years, decades, oh, there's a lot of change since I first started out on this Dharma journey. We must experience the changes, otherwise why do you keep coming back? You can see the benefits, right? So we just sort of slowly, so we can take these eons as a way to, not to say relax too much, but to relax our, I've got to do it all right now, this second, you know, and just think, no, I'm a work in progress, little baby bodhisattva steps day by day, keep going forward in the same direction.
I'm curious, from a Buddhist perspective, what proportion of things happen to us in our lives are attributed to karma? Just random, unrelated.
There's nothing random, unrelated, which means that karma suggests there is an order to things. There's a natural law. So there is an order to things. Nothing is random, right? What we experience as something random is not random. It's just we can't explain it. We can't explain it in the context of this life, right? Be that good or bad, we can't explain that. But the more that we study and reflect and think about it, it had to have a similar cause, like the fact of us all being here, wanting to be here, being here, having conditions coming together to allow that to happen, would suggest that in past lives, we've been together in the context of a Dharma center, monastery, whatever it was, nunnery, whatever it was, we've all been together before. So we have a karmic connection. So this is what it would say. We don't know what that is, right? So we just take it as, yeah, must have been here before. But when we look at things like bad things that happen, we'll look at that a bit more next week, because it's about the ripening of different, the ways in which karma ripens as our environmental experience, as a tendency to do those things again, or be good at something. How did, you know, look at Mozart, you know, child prodigy, or said to be at an early age, having learnt piano, of course now renounced as a nun, but having learnt piano from 4 years old, I don't know, it doesn't come spontaneously to me at whatsoever. But I had the conditions. I had the mum who was a piano teacher, right? So that's a condition of this life. But my interest in doing that would have come from some interest in music, maybe even playing piano or harpsichord or whatever it was in past lives. So we start to be able to understand that, or how it is that, given that as human beings, so it's said to be born human, we've practiced generosity, we've practiced ethics in past lives. And how come then we have increasingly, it would seem, unethical world leaders, like they're human beings? How come? So that's other karma ripening of, well, if we look back at someone like Hitler being a killing machine, that may have been as a lion, as a whale, you know, all these fish for breakfast, you know. Could have been in any context. We don't know. Doesn't literally mean, oh, as a human being. So we can say, oh yeah, well, For example, oh no, that would be a conditional. So we can say there are things that are conditions, learnt behaviors in this life. That's true. I was thinking about before I met the Dharma, killing mosquitoes without a thought, you know. But that was learnt behavior in this life because everyone around me was doing that, and that's what you did, right? But I didn't have the karma from a past life to say, no way am I going to kill another being. You know, there are kids who are just like, no way, don't take the lice out of my head. No way I'm not going to kill a mosquito. That's rare, but it exists. You know? So you'd say that is a past life from saving lives, perhaps. Very, very complicated. So we say that we have this karmic imprint, like I said, it has to meet with the conditions in this life or whichever life. So those are the conditions that come with this life. Yeah. Yes, Ollie.
I'm just thinking about experiences that we have.
Yeah.
We have some positive experience and not negative experience. So how does our mind play a role in determining if something's negative or positive? Or
It's how our mind responds to that. So it can be a nice sunny day like today, or it can be a horrible sunny day like today. So that's up to us. Individually, we'll experience that differently.
my friend,
And that depends on my habituation of my own mind to the situation. It might be I'm also having chemotherapy. I'm not, by the way, but and so I don't like the sunny day. So it can be different. Yeah. You were going to mention an example.
Yeah, the situations are more complex. Like my friend had car stolen.
Yeah.
But then it turns out, I don't know, from the insurance company, he ended up better off, so he was kind of happy about it.
So you'd say he had the karma to have it stolen, but he also had the karma to have insurance. So there's a couple of ripenings of different things in that same situation. So it's not like just one thing here, one thing here, one thing here. It's how we explain it because it's complex enough as it is, but multiple effects. So, or we could say, and this is again, not knowing the intricacies of karma, that yes, had the karma to have the car stolen, but the conditions that he had created was able to mitigate the impact. Yes, the car was stolen, that happened, right? But mitigate the impact for him ongoing by having the insurance and benefiting from that. And you'd say that would be a ripening of past karma of generosity. Having resources in this life is that, yeah.
For someone, you know, you hear about they get cancer.
Yes.
It's very devastating.
Yes.
But yes, get cancer and then they really fresh look at their whole life and they
Yeah. So they had the karma to experience the cancer, we would say. But then, yeah, what our minds do with that is of the now, you know, that you see, you experience as a death sentence, or you experience as an opportunity, or as, you know, when my brother-in-law got cancer, and, you know, he says, oh, well, if they have to chop my leg off, they have to chop my leg off. They didn't have to chop his leg off. You know. He had very intensive treatment over a few years. And they did say, you know, you were later, they said, oh, we didn't think you'd last, you know, 5 months. So he's still alive, whatever it is, 20 years later. Yeah, pretty good.
That would be that situation.
Well, something arising as a negative experience for us. So the cancer itself. So very often those sort of ripening of negative karmas can happen. We don't think about that. Yes, our mind, but also our body, right? So it can ripen as a physical illness. So for example, you know, when I had pneumonia, And I ended up in hospital rather than going to Chöden Rinpoche's teachings. So I was a little bit upset about that, to say the least. But then when I got the message from Chöden Rinpoche as a Buddhist, hearing Chöden Rinpoche say, oh, very good, you know, in this life, purifying that karma, better than eons of hot hells. And I'll take it. This is better than eons of hot hells. Right? So because I'd met the Dharma, and that would be a ripening of also past virtuous karma, experienced the Dharma before, I was able to go from poor pity me to, oh, great. This is great. What would I know about karma? Better than eons of hot hells. From what I've heard about hot hells, I don't want to go there, you know, or experience that. Yeah. So multiple things are ripening at the same time, you would say. Yeah. Is there another?
We're talking about opportunities, you know, I recall a situation where when running a business, we used to get broken into from it. And but in the beginning, we didn't have a lot to take. We used to leave change in the till so that if anyone did break in, they would feel like they've got some money to further whatever they.
So that's generosity, yes.
Yeah. We had made an apple pie and left it on the bench to cool overnight. And they had taken the apple pie, which we were laughing about, and the person that made it, we had explained that it must have been a very good apple pie because they took that as well. And
yes, so you didn't want their mind to be upset.
Yeah. And we actually then, when it was written on the board, when we made an apple, we called it Robert's apple pie. This multiplying effect, people listening to the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a wonderful turnaround. You know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says if people take things from you, from your heart, give it freely. You know, just don't get upset they took it. Just from your heart, give it freely. And it sounds like you multiplied the effect big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. See? That's magnification, all right. Wonderful. Okay, so I think we'll finish with that wonderful note. We'll do the dedication prayers. And of course, people are welcome. I know you might want to get away, but if you wanted to stick around and have a chat, please do. We have, because we had, you know, our Losar New Year celebration on Tuesday night. There's a lot of blessed, as we say, food, drink, whatever's out there on the table, that please take home with you. You know, spread the love or give it to others. And it's all guilt-free because it's all bliss. I don't talk about calories. I just talk about guilt-free. Okay, page 15, was it? 16. Any advance on 16? Page 16, so the third verse down. Through the merits of this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then we turn to page 19, the long life prayers of our lamas. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Page 22. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves as a bountiful bearer of all sustaining, preserving and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. O foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme. O Lama, please, please live long. Okay. Thank you very much. So you can see we have a wall of Taras, the wisdom mother, mother of all the Buddhas here. And we're going to gradually put the big one over here and a little bit more happening. Very exciting that it's coming into completion stage. Really, really wonderful. And then when that happens, hopefully when Geshe Zopa's back in town, we'll have a blessing, consecration of that, and invite all and have a big party. Okay, thank you for this morning.
I would say